All right, hey ho, let's go. Analysis of variance 3, interpreting interactions and revisiting main effects in the presence of an interaction. I've talked about this a bit already. It's always important to note that when you have main effects, it's very possible that they are simply a product or a byproduct even of the interaction effects. So we want to take a deep dive and kind of look really closely at different effects. And when we can say, oh yeah, there is a main effect that we want to talk about here, or that main effect is something that's just produced by the interaction, or the term that you'll generally read is these main effects are qualified by a significant interaction. So the key question when we interpret interactions is what's the effect of factor A across the levels of factor B? It could, of course, be the other way around. It doesn't matter. Here is the difference between northerners and southerners the same for the not bumped as in the bumped condition. And if it isn't, we do have an interaction. If the difference is the same, we do not. I'm sorry. If the difference is the same, let me just change that. My apologies. So if the answer is no, the difference is the same, then we do have an interaction. So if the difference is not the same, if it is exactly the same difference, we don't have an interaction. Again, if the difference is one thing in the first condition and something different in the second condition, then it's not the same and we do have an interaction. If we see the same thing across the two conditions, then we don't have an interaction. Now, explaining the interaction is the most important piece here. When we talk about interactions, it's certainly not enough to simply say there is an interaction, because those interactions can take lots and lots and lots of different forms. When we have main effects, we do need to think carefully about the main effects in the context of the interactions. And again, that's in a recognition that sometimes these main effects are simply produced by the interactions. That is, one mean could be really, really, really high in a single cell, but that's going to drive up the means for the test of the main effects as well. All right, main effect for region. Southerners overall were more aggressive than northerners. We want to ask, is that true for both the bumped and not bumped condition, or only true for one condition? If it's true for both of them, we would call this a true main effect. And if it's true for only one, we would just say that the main effect was produced by the interaction. Or we would just simply report the main effect and then say, but these are qualified, and not talk about the main effect anymore. Main effect for condition. Was bumped more aggressive than not bumped overall? Was that true for both northerners and southerners? If it's true for both, we have a true main effect. If it's true for only one group, we have main effects produced by that were produced by the interaction. So what does the interaction look like? Well, what does this interaction look like? If we take a quick look at this, one thing that we can see is when southerners got bumped and insulted, their means went way up, and kind of overall, most of the means are pretty similar. The first question going through, is the main effect of region driven by the interaction? One way to look at that is, do the left-hand bars, the two left-hand bars, the not bumped and insulted conditions, are they particularly different? Do they show a different pattern than what we see for the bumped and insulted bars? What I'm seeing here, and again, I'm just kind of eyeballing this, is in the not bumped, not insulted condition, northerners and southerners are pretty similar in terms of their means. However, in the bumped and insulted conditions, there's a big difference. So here I would say that overall main effect for region, it's pretty much driven by that interaction, that one cell that's just jumping out there. Now, main effect for condition. Here we would want to ask, does bumped and insulted consistently produce higher means than not bumped and insulted? We see it on the left. It's more pronounced on the right, but I would say, yeah, overall, that condition seemed to produce more aggression or more increase in testosterone. Is that particularly important to our study design? Probably not. So this would again be a case where we'd probably just say, hey, there were main effects, they're qualified by the interaction, and then we just talk about the interaction. So almost all of the action that you'll see in your results section is going to be discussing the interactions and explaining them. And again, the questions you want to ask, is the effect of one factor the same as the effect, same across the levels of the other factors? If it is the same, it isn't an interaction. If it is not the same and the result is significant, it is an interaction. Another way to put this, less statistically, at any point, can you describe the results in "it depends" language? Well, does region affect aggression or testosterone increase in this case? Well, it depends. In the not bumped, not insulted condition, no, not really. But in the bumped and insulted condition, yes, it certainly does. So it depends on the research condition. When it depends, it is an interaction. If it doesn't depend, it's not an interaction.